Guess what episode this is, Kyrin?
310.
Oh, that is what it's going to be in 2022. But for now, it is 107. It is Musings. It is time for us to look back on a week that was, on our learnings, our thoughts.
Yep.
But let's begin with a mere mortal moment.
Sorry, I'm just doing the math. I'm not even sure if it'll be 2022. It could be
2021 actually, depending on our speed.
End. Yeah.
Dang. We'll see. You'll have to tune in to that one. Yeah, exactly. So, mere mortal moment. Hit me up with yours.
Okay. So, just because you drew the logical conclusion doesn't mean you are correct. Regression to the mean results in punishment being the only workable solution.
Ooh, so regression to the mean. I like this.
We talked about this not too long ago. I can't remember which episode because we make a lot.
Yep.
But essentially, if you've got like a base steady level of results and there's sort of individual results coming in, the discipline episode, that was why I brought it up. If you have a peaked result, and someone does something really good and then you try and praise them or whatnot to make sure they keep doing that, they tend to fall back into the middle. And same if someone does something really shit, then you're like, punch them, discipline them, whatever. And then just regression to the mean makes them come back up, not because you discipline them. So I just found that really interesting thought that, okay, there's a way that we've created this like negative system in some cases. So especially if you're a teacher of some sort, and you've got just a base level of students or whatever it is working. I just found it very cool, interesting that you could. The logical conclusion is that okay, I need to be meaner as a person, and this is helping when it actually isn't.
Might not be helping at all. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Mine is, you can have strong opinions, just make sure that they're loosely held.
Oh.
Not sure if I've used this as a mere mortal moment yet or not. And if I have, I'm so sorry, Kyrin. You'll have to find someone. But
that's fine.
I wanted to bring this up because it is prominent to some of my things I want to be talking about today.
Yeah.
And this is gonna pull me straight into one of the things I want to muse about.
Okay.
And it is, do you know who Tristan Harris is?
I do.
Have you been listening to him lately on Joe Rogan?
Not lately, but I've heard of him once or twice. Okay. Once on Joe Rogan, once on Sam Harris, a couple of times on Tim Ferriss, I believe.
Okay,
so
all right. So Tristan Harris...
well enough aware of the general thing.
So Tristan Harris, and for those who don't know, we did a bit of a discussion on the social dilemma just not too long ago as well. And I just went hammer and tongs at it. I despise it. And you got to make sure you have strong opinions, but have them loosely held. And an interesting thing happened to me. I've decided I'm going to listen to a bit more Joe Rogan first of all. Okay. I thought, okay, let's pull the trigger. Let's listen to a bit more. And it just happened that he was talking to Tristan Harris just very, very recently.
Yep.
And not just through that, but I listened to quite a few podcasts that talked about the social dilemma. And there was a myriad of different people suggesting different things. The usual suspects of what I said that would kind of back up what I said were still there. Gary Vee, there was some discussions about Gary Vee, what he thought about the social dilemma and everything. And he had a similar point to what I was saying in relation to, well, where the accountability from the human, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing that I found while listening to Tristan Harris and a couple of the others, I felt like I went too hard in, I guess, brutalizing that particular social dilemma before the reasons that it didn't show the other side, which I still hold completely true. But I think I didn't do it justice in the fact that there is truth in what they're talking about. In the fact that, if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. And that's completely true. So I kind of looked back and I went, okay, I think I didn't articulate myself well enough in that discussion as well.
Yep.
And when I look at it in the way that, sure, the analytics and the way that it's set up and the way that I even use TikTok in the way, I give an example that Tristan Harris was talking about. When you go on Facebook, you have to start scrolling a little bit for it to get going, right? And then you'll kind of get lost in the infinity pool of information. But when TikTok, as of recently, as soon as you open TikTok, content's already playing. It's already going. You're already in the infinity pool. Makes it a lot harder to come out. And that is 100% what the company decides to do. And they're monetizing in the way that they've got listeners and followers and viewers. So they're incentivized to go down that path. So I wanted to more correct my view, my strong opinion that I had before, to say accountability is 100% still there. You're still got to be accountable to it. But there is most definitely technology and setup in place in these companies that do pull you in. Like there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I think it's good to, one of the things that I think we do well is to make ourselves accountable to ourselves. And, you know, one of the things I think that's most important in life is we all know the right things, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, the general sort of stuff. But I think it's more on emphasis, like what part you put emphasis on and what you don't, what part you're interested in and not interested in, what part you actually implement and you don't implement. And that would be, I guess, like the area of free will, which if you listen to the Marty episode, I don't particularly believe in. So, but we'll talk about that in 2 weeks anyway. But
when the F falls in.
Yeah.
But just before I move away from that particular point as well, another one that I was trying to pull out was information is not wisdom either. So this was another thing where just because you see it a lot of times, or you might see it superficially, that is information. Until you connect the dots and put it together in a specific way that's acknowledged by your brain and the way that it interacts, and you validate it across different things, that's more aligned to wisdom. Information is not wisdom. So I think one thing that I was doing with the social dilemma is I took it too much of a face value. It was information getting thrown. And I thought, well, they're not displaying the other way. That's information. But I wasn't wise enough to really look into what they were trying to communicate in the first place. So beware. Information is not wisdom.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. I've been having that a bit with even just that Daniel Kahneman book, which is full of all these studies, full of all these, wow, if you do this sort of thing, this happens. And people, and they're all just basically one-off studies, and social studies as well, which are the least reliable. So that's a good one where I'm not taking any individual study he's taking, and I'd probably never repeat any of them except for maybe as a pointer to make us to like emphasize a point or to create like a discussion on something. But the theme of the whole book, which I'm appreciating, is just acknowledging how easily we're tricked and how my brain definitely does like go into certain methods of thinking and non-thinking and analysis and non-analysis, and what sort of triggers them, as well as being careful for methods that other people can use to trick my brain into doing certain things. So it's just interesting going down that route. So but same thing, a lot of information in that book. How much wisdom? I think you need to look between the lines, or as a whole, take a step
or as
back.
you do it, connect it to other sources of, I guess, knowledge or info that you've read in the past, and create the wisdom from it.
For sure. All right, so I'll get onto one of mine, which was just an interesting little thing that I noticed that I did not too long ago, and it didn't really make sense. And I think you were sort of like, oh, why would you do this? But for our quotes, so I make the mere mortal moment quotes, and one of the things that I've asked both of us to do is to actually write it down, so it's easy for me to just get it word for word, or for yours, you put it in 2 sentences, so it's very easy for me to just nail down and put it in the quote. But I was taking some from the interviews that we've done,
the guests,
and there obviously we can't ask them to put it in a two sentence, really digestible. They don't really know exactly how we do it. So when we ask for a mere mortal moment from them, it can be like a bit all over the shop. It can be like a long paragraph,
story,
whatever. And so one of them from Maddie was, I was listening to her quote, and hers was a little bit everywhere. It was sort of like, all right, I'll try and take this piece from here and here. And basically one of the things that I wanted to be careful of was to get the actual wording right, because I didn't really have a sense of why, but I just thought, okay, now this is important. I don't want to put words in their mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to get rid of the
the true intent,
as instead of about, or make what I think they're trying to say exactly, because the point of the quotes is it's a quote. It's what they're saying. And so I stuffed it up. I thought she said, and this was just a funny one. I thought she said cake. So I was going to go for coffee with cake. And she actually said going for coffee with Kate, her friend Kate. And I just didn't pick that up and didn't get that, that side piece of it. And I'd already posted it, and she sort of like hit you up saying like, hey, like, what's this?
Cake?
And I went, oh, okay, no, I stuffed up there. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to fix that up and make it better. So I didn't really know why I was doing that. It was more one, just not wanting to put words in people's mouth. But in the book I've just started reading, which is the So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get his name right because Ron Johnson is very easy to say as well. John Ronson. And he had the story of this guy called Jonah Leher or something like that.
Okay.
Unimportant who he actually is, but basically he got caught adding little bits and quotes, pieces that weren't actually factually true to Bob Dylan quotes. And he was recycling some of his old material from blog posts and then he'd put it in this other place. And then he was just doing all like these very small, very minor things in total, but added up to being basically a sort of like a fraud. He was, stealing other people's work. He was plagiarizing his own work. He was embellishing stuff that other people never said to make his book that extra emphatic, that extra little bit.
Yeah, okay.
And I just saw the same parallel there. I went, you know what? I could have taken like the easier route and just been like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. And just publish it, whether it's due to laziness. And, his reasoning was he didn't have time. He was a very, very busy guy. He was like writing tons of books and doing articles and paid speaking gigs, which, oh my God, you can get some serious money from those things.
Oh yeah, geez.
So he got outed as a sort of like a faker, and plagiarizing and whatnot. And he did this public apology for this like forum or this network, this place, and he ended up and it was like a live tweet thing as well. So there was a big screen behind of people
tweeting away,
and so he could see like public, like in the moment, how his apology was being reacted to and whatnot. And one of the people was like, how much is he getting paid to actually be at this event?
His engagement.
And it's sort of like it's meant to be an apology. It's meant to be, effacing yourself, asking forgiveness. They ended up and then the responders were like, of the
event.
The event, they said, yeah, he's getting paid like 20 grand for this, 10-minute speech or whatever it was. Just ridiculous.
It's an interesting.
Anywho, it just got to the point where that's one of the areas where I think you need to be careful. It's easy to, so his sort of justification was like, I didn't mean to do any of these really intentionally. First, it started off as a lack of time and I did the easy thing. And then I did the more egregious stuff, the lying about it and the, accusing other people of doing things and whatnot afterwards to sort of cover up that initial, negligence. And I think it's just important sometimes you catch those things early, catch them hard and really stay to it and be like, no, okay, this quote doesn't particularly work out. All right, I'm just going to have to scrap it and find something else to do here. Yeah,
okay. No, I like that. I'm going to tie it in with my next one because it's sort of like it, but maybe not really. We'll see. We'll see how I develop because I do like that. My second one was the cruel voice in your head. And it's also paired up with, have you heard of the NXIVM cult? NXIVM cult. So NXIVM cult has a new... on Stan, there's a new series on it at the moment, and I haven't really looked much into it, so I'm just getting into it at the moment. But I also listened to a podcast around the cruel voice in your head, and it was an ABC podcast. It was done, I think it was a series from 2018, and it was following people who were talking about the mental illnesses and also how they got all the way to suicide thoughts and how they, looking back on an irrational period with a rational mind. And in this particular episode that they were talking about, they were saying, where does the other voice come from in your mind? The other one that says, oh, well, you're not good enough. No, you're really shit. You shouldn't be doing this. Or why'd you do that? All that sort of stuff. And it made me think from what you were talking about, unless you hold the line, I think, I'm not going to say everybody, but most people on earth as mere mortals, I think you'll have a little voice in your mind that might be a doubt, might be that fear, might be something else telling you not to do something. And unless you hold the line against it, and maybe if you want to think it from a disciplined way or your minimum standard, your minimum quality, if you start slowly pushing it out and giving into that, you're going to get to this level where it's like more and more where you're hearing the cruel voice and believing it and letting it go and going and going to the point that, like say in that example, you get to a point where you're thinking, oh, well, no, this is all totally fine. When, if you objectively look back at it or rationally, you go, okay, no, this is not fine. I shouldn't have done this. This is terrible.
Yeah.
So looking into the NXIVM cult, I've only just started, so I don't know a great deal about it. But the way that they do really interestingly was break down what a cult does to become a cult. So what are these high points that they do to arouse you so that you can sign up for the next level, and how they bring you on. And it got into this interesting conversation where I still haven't really formulated what's the difference between a cult and one of these other empowering high-level connections that you get. Because when you look at this documentary and some of the steps and the things that they do to bring around people and get them to sign up and everything else, I'm going to compare it to, say, a Tony Robbins event. They do very similar things to the point that you could call it a cult in that sense. But there's obviously a line somewhere in the sand that maybe a cult is defined by the fact that it's got harm to people or going past moral boundaries or ethical boundaries. Maybe there's something around that. But all the techniques that were in there, you could just as well pull them out into a cult to build really empowering structures and the way that you interact. So it really surprised me around, you could really pull this and use it for good or use it for evil. And, I paired it up with that little podcast I listened to, because I reckon the more you listen to the cruel voice in your mind, the more it can sway you towards one way or another. So that was almost a meandering, because it's been very recent and I haven't really structured it down in a format, but it struck me as very interesting that just, very tiny little things that you might listen to in your mind can just completely change the outcome of whatever it is that you're doing. Even if the same, it makes me think, what creates a cult creates a really powerful speaker with a really big following. And it's just little percentages that in the end make it go, when you look back, when a rational mind go, oh man, that turned out horrible, or it turned out really well.
Yeah. I think it's not like comparing apples to oranges for cults and motivational speaking. I think it's more comparing mandarins to oranges, because you can see there's a lot of overlap between those two.
I like that.
Yeah, I guess the enthusiasm, the creating of focusing on a central leader, I think the type of people that tend to get drawn into those as well are all very, very similar. And it's just, you're just a couple of steps away, not too far
some of the other things I was, it was the, and Tristan Harris was actually talking about it with Joe Rogan, but the vertical integration in a cult is what makes it really powerful. So, you go into a cult and they try to do as a friendship group, and where you work and who you interact with, they try to take all of that so that you're always infused into it. When you look at some of these really popular people who are like your Tony Robbins or your Gary Vee, they're not forcing it, but they put out a lot of content and say, hey, join in for the monthly group and then do this and come to the Facebook group and join these weekly events and all that. You could get yourself joined up in the same way, but it's just maybe what's the intent behind the, okay, there might be good intent, but there also might not be good intent. Also, the scary thing with the NXIVM one is that for a lot of years, back then, whenever it was in the 80s, well, no, it was through 2018, it was 19. Yeah. Because you just recently got...
it had the Smallville actor in it, the Alison Mack.
Yeah.
So that was getting filmed in the 2000s, I think.
Yeah, actually, no, in the documentary, there's people who sort of joined, they're talking in people who were from 2002 onward to 2018, so it's recent.
Yeah.
And in the early 2000s, people just thought it was an executive program, success program. That's what people thought. And obviously it turned out not to be that.
Well, and it might have been that as well.
If it wasn't for those extra level of craziness at the side, you could have had that. Yeah. So it was very interesting.
Yeah. There you go, man.
Funnily enough, the guy, I don't know if you saw, but the guy got 120 years in prison.
Damn.
So just a little bit. He won't be out for a while.
Damn. Well, I hope in his cult he was promising them that he can live forever as well.
Yeah.
So, it's nothing. He'll wave that off. I've said it a couple of times here. I think though, if I was going to join a cult, I'd probably join Wim Hof. I think if he started a cult, that'd probably be one
Kyrin would be in.
I think crazy Dutch guy. Just breathe, motherfucker.
I'm going to tell you, folks. living with Kyrin, so sometimes I'll be waking up. I'm starting to work, right?
Yeah.
So imagine me just to work.
So
heavy. So I'm here saving your tax money and putting it to good use, and all I can hear in the background is
the beluga whale.
The beluga whale in the background. But no, you joined the Wim Hof cult.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy. Like
He is. Of all the interviews I've listened to him, he's enigmatic. He's interesting to listen to. He knows his stuff really well too. He's very scientifically minded.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
I'd love to. Part of the charm is his English isn't 100%. So he's getting these different ways. It'd be interesting to know what it would be like as a Dutch person listening to him in Dutch. How he sounds.
Even more articulate you could be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe it'd be less, because some of the gurus, they're sort of restricted by their speech. So it almost comes up with a different level of communication. And I want to do it here anyway, because this was on my mind.
Good.
And I heard it recently. The Turing Test. Do you think AIs would be able to perform better in different languages? So Turing Test, for those who don't know, is basically a way to find out if a AI, artificial intelligence, is very smart or not, essentially, which is you have two computers or have a person on a computer communicating with either a real person or an AI, and they have to decide, is this an artificial intelligence or if it's a real person?
Yeah.
If they say, yep, there's a real person I'm communicating with, it passes the test.
But it isn't... correct me if I'm wrong. It isn't specifically a 50-50 either. It's not even that. It's not even 50%. It's like 32% or some random number.
I think the test itself is just if it passes the test or if it doesn't. So, it's not a test for a human. Can humans fail the Turing test by people thinking they're so boring and bland that they must be an AI?
Maybe. But no, I think I looked into it specifically. It's not even a 50-50 chance. It's even lower, like a 32% chance or something. There's a mathematical calculation for it as to why it is. But it's interesting because you think, currently it would be really good, but you can ask it some questions which it would just have no idea about.
Yeah. So, but anywho, do you think, so say they get to, they're getting to reasonable levels, but do you think they would do better in some languages than others? So, Spanish and English fairly well. Do you think you could be tricked more easily in either one of them?
No, I think language would be irrelevant.
Yeah.
It would be irrelevant in the Turing test.
Okay.
Because I think the concepts... So the reason I say that is because language is large part a creation of humans, of being models. And that has been quantified. We've created that. We've encodified that and put it into information in lots of places. A machine and computer could probably go and find all that information out. And the bits and pieces that would be more hard to decode would be like the intent of words, like, how you might join words together into sentences, into paragraphs. That might be more complex, but across languages, I think that wouldn't altogether be too difficult. The pieces that would be difficult to beat as part of a Turing test would go beyond the realms of language, is what I'm thinking. So the concept of language wouldn't contain questions that you could ask, and questions I'm thinking about is you just maybe physical things or chemical things or things in the environment or things that we think about, which in whatever language you say it in, the thought of it is beyond language, is in some other section entirely. So I think that's where it would really struggle. And an example there would be, asking questions around the ego, the self, or other realms. Now, sure, it has different names in different languages, but the concept of it is beyond language. It's in some other area entirely of, I guess, what we think of consciousness. So those questions, I think, to a machine would make little sense, because even though there's some language constraints, the thought maybe that you might have in your brain about it or the answers might be just wildly beyond that.
Yeah.
So that's my initial gut thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yours?
Probably. I think the fact you can translate books relatively easy. Maybe you don't get the exact particular meaning of that one particular word, but I don't think there's that much. Yeah, just with like the way it's sort of globalized, I guess, languages and whatnot, and English sort of being predominant. Yeah, I think most people have like the same concepts down pat, unless you're in maybe an undeveloped country and you don't have that much access to the internet and outside world,
Yeah.
then maybe your thinking is sort of, trapped inside these barriers. But yeah, it's definitely more about the concepts and ideas rather than the actual structure of the language. And that was sort of what the Nick Szabo, I was listening
Nick
to.
Szabo, yep. Here, an interesting question is to finish off with the musings. What question would you ask a machine to make sure it failed?
To trick it? See, I was just thinking of that then. I would probably do like a lot of different little ones. So I'd maybe... I'd ask, what's sort of like your experience of the color green? How would you try and describe that? So something really, very hard to talk about.
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm going to say. In those sort of questions, that's why I think my answer of language is just constrained. It's because you could ask that in any language, but the answer isn't going to come from language. It's going to come from something else entirely.
Yeah, I would also do things though, like write in anagrams or something. So,
okay.
Just like different pieces that you'd see, like think a human would maybe not be able to understand. Then, try and trick it by just typing incoherently or whatnot and see what happens. Just play around, do different things. But, I think we should actually go out and see if you can find online places where you can do these tests.
You can.
I'm sure there's
a couple.
Do they give you feedback of whether you actually get it right or not?
I'm not sure. It reminds me of that Blue Genie website. I don't know if you ever used it, where you can think of any person, I think, any semi-relative famous person, and it'll figure out who you're thinking about in 24 questions.
Yeah,
just by the way it asks you questions and derives
cool.
people. So it's actually pretty... It will work. If you think of someone who's like kind of famous, at least exists in Wikipedia, you'll find it 100% before 24 questions, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
My question that I would ask it though would be something to do with laughter, because I think that would be one of the hardest things to, like, the emotion of laughter is very unique to humans.
Yeah.
So, and doing it out of like a particular sentence. So it might be asking a question of, what do you find is funnier, this or that question? Oh, this joke or that joke, or something in relation to a joke or a laugh, or asking it to tell you a good joke.
Yeah.
Because that requires something beyond just... Like, it's something very unique to the way the humans interact and socialize.
It would need to be a joke. I wouldn't say a good joke. I'd say, like, tell me a really funny story from your life. And I'd need to do maybe a half an hour of speaking with them first to understand, like, oh, okay, it's a 50-year-old French woman who transferred over to America when they were 6 years old and they lived in this neighborhood. So you get, like, that context behind it. And then you'd be able to say, like, okay, now tell me a joke. And if they tell like a joke about, a dick joke or farting or something, you'd be like, I'm not sure about that. Why would a 50-year-old French lady be saying that? Yeah. Something like that.
Good.
Very
Here at
good,
Me Immortals, we beat the Turing test all day.
Mate.
All day, every day.
We are the next level.
we haven't ascended Me Immortals yet. That's episode 300. 313 or whatever it may be.
317, I think it's
317. I got nothing else for the musings today.
Me too.
We're going to keep it there. We're going to keep it short.
Good.
Today I'm boiling in this room, to be honest with you. I am boiling, but you love the temperature.
This is a very nice temperature for me.
Okay. Well, if you want to keep getting heated up by the Me Immortals in this warmth, Kyrin, what can they do? What can the folks at home? I haven't asked you this in a while.
Turn it up.
What can they do to turn it up?
They can goddamn subscribe. That's what they can do. We just passed 100 on YouTube. Self-congratulatory pat on the back for that. Thank you, Kyrin. We actually got to celebrate it twice because someone unsubscribed at 100, went down to 99.
Do it again. I want 3 people to leave so we can get a couple more.
So, no, but seriously, if you go there, if you subscribe on Spotify as well, that would be helpful because then you can see our stuff popping up. It's more about... And, I suppose sticking to what you find enjoyable from us. So if you're really liking the book reviews... stick to the book reviews and then maybe branch out to the other stuff. But we do so many different things. Like I don't want anyone to, feel they have to listen to different things or
all of them.
Yeah, or all of them. I mean, I used to try and listen to most of our stuff, and then it got to a point where it's like, okay, I'll just listen to bits and pieces, and now it's like, okay, I'll listen to what I can.
I'm going to say it's interesting because I hope that people out there are consuming what we put out as much or in the way that I consume our stuff. And by that I mean is, for me, I listen to your book reviews because I find them insightful and I can get tips and things that, I haven't read the book, so I can get stuff from that. Generally, if you're doing an interview, I'll also be listening to that. And here and there, I might listen to an interview that I've done or previous discussions that we've had, but it's not going to be every single episode. And hopefully, if you're listening out to every single episode, pat yourself on the back. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
But if you're not, that's cool. Find what suits you. We all know how we, consume podcasts with everyone else, even the top dogs of Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss. I don't listen to every single one of those. I listen to the one that I find interesting, and there's just not enough hours in the day to go and listen to absolutely everything. So you got to pick what's good. And look, I commend people who spend their hard-earned minutes listening to us. So it does not go unnoticed. And we will be doing something very special for those folks out there who have stuck with us and have shown us love. We will be showing love back. Don't worry about that.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, that is all. That has been the Mere Mortals Musings.
Musings.
Juan out.
Kyrin out.
Ooh. Oh.